The battle of the Cold War ARs continues as Raven puts out weapon balances after weapon balances. There are many great ARs at the top of the long range meta right now, including the SCG, the Automaton, Cooper Carbine, and most importantly the AK-47 and the XM4. The AK-47 and the XM4 have been battling it out at the top of the long range meta for a while. So today in this video we're going to put these guns into a head-to-head battle and compare the stats on paper to figure out the better AR and which AR should you be using in Season 3 of Warzone. We're going to be taking a look at the most relevant stats of ARs, which include movement speed, bullet velocity, TTK, and ADS time. Along with that, we're also going to go over the bullets to kill and the recoil control for each of these guns. Before I show you the stats, here's the loadout for the XM4 and the AK-47. Both loadouts are very similar and are built for long range. Now let's start off with the ADS time of the ARs, as this is the third best stat to look at for an AR after time to kill and bullet velocity. Now you're not going to get lightning fast ADS like the SMGs, but we also don't want the ARs to ADS hella slow. Both of the ARs are pretty close in terms of ADS, as the AK comes in at 435 milliseconds and the XM4 comes in at 411 milliseconds. Not a huge difference, but that's still 1 point to the XM4. Now let's move on to the next category, which is the movement speed. For movement, we're going to look at the tag sprint, and strafing speed. As you can see, very close again, but the XM4 is just slightly faster than the AK-47 in all three categories. That's another point to the XM4. Now let's move on to the bullet velocity for both ARs. So if you don't know, the higher the bullet velocity, the more the gun feels like a laser when you're shooting. And the bullet velocity for both ARs is the same at 1,530 meters per second. And that's very solid for a long range AR, but that round comes to a tie and that's a point for both of the guns. Next, let's move on to the most important stat for a gun, the TTK, aka the time to kill. The TTK for both guns is close again like most of these stats, but as you can see on the graph, the AK-47 just beats the XM4 in terms of TTK, as it kills just a little bit faster. This graph is based on 300 health and chest shots only. The AK has a TTK of 800 milliseconds from 0 to 36 meters, and after 36 meters it drops off to 900 milliseconds. The XM4 on the other hand has a TTK of 830 milliseconds from 0 to 32 meters, and then drops off to 913 milliseconds after 32 meters. That's another point to the AK-47. Now let's move on to bullets to kill for both weapons. The AK-47 kills in fewer bullets than the XM4 at all ranges, especially at long range. After 36 meters, the XM4 kills in 12 bullets, while the AK kills in 10. This is chest shots I'm talking about, and that is mostly due to the fact that AK does more damage overall than the XM4. Looking at the damage profiles for long range, you can see the AK-47 does more damage overall than the XM4, which is why it takes less bullets to kill. That's another point to the AK-47, and it looks like it's all tied up. But as the overlord for this competition, I declared the AK-47 to be the winner because it wins in categories that are more important in my opinion. For example, the AK has a faster TTK, does more damage, and takes less bullets to kill, which are way more important categories than movement speed and ADS for long range. Now the AK might win on paper, but not everyone will be able to hit those shots perfectly like on paper. This is mainly due to the recoil, so let's look at the recoil for both guns. So on the left side, the red one is the XM4 recoil, and on the right side, the green one is the AK-47 recoil. And as you can see, both of the recoils are pretty straightforward. They're not that complicated. There's just slightly difference in both of the recoils. Let's look at the XM4 recoil first. The XM4 recoil goes straight up and it starts to shift to the right side. So in order to control that, you're gonna have to pull down to your left side after half of the mag has been emptied out. Now let's look at the AK recoil. I feel like this is a lot easier than the XM4 because it kind of just goes straight up. There's that slight curve in the middle, but that's not a huge thing in my opinion. This is very straightforward to control. All you have to do is pull down. And looking at both of these recoils, I feel like more people would have an easier time controlling the AK recoil, which is the green side. But that all depends on your playstyle or how you feel comfortable playing. Some people might be more comfortable pulling to the left or better at it than pulling just straight down. But that just all depends on your playstyle. But in my opinion, the AK has a better recoil than the XM4. But if I'm being honest, in game, I don't really feel a huge difference between the guns. For both of the guns, I tend to just pull down. I mean, it is Call of Duty after all, and there's not a lot of recoil like in other games there is, so it's not too hard to control. But the final thoughts on both of the guns, I feel like they're both very similar. Both of them are neck to neck in all categories, and you can't go wrong in either one. If you're a really competitive player and you want the edge on everybody else, then I would recommend using the AK, as it wins on most stats on paper, so I would recommend using the AK. But if you're just a casual player, then you can choose either one and you can't go wrong with either one. And at the end of the day, these stats are on paper and don't take into account human error. The difference in stats isn't so big that you might die to a shitty player using the AK when you're using an XM4. So use whichever gun you like using. Both of them have different animations in game. They feel different in game as well. So pick whichever gun you like better or you have a better skin for, but on paper the AK does win. Just slightly though. And that's all I have for you guys today, and let me know if you guys agree with the conclusion of this battle. And let me know which guns you want to see me compare next in the comments, or any other feedback in terms of content you would like to see. But anyways, leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you want to see how the ZRG stacks up against the HTR in the new season, click this video on the screen and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.